What is going on, everybody? This morning we are actually doing coffee in the car. I haven't even had a sip yet. On the way to an eye appointment. So, we're going to talk a little bit today because it keeps coming up. People are like, I don't want to talk about this, but it seems to be all they want to talk about, really. We're going to talk about being cheap. So, people often, hear about the cheap guitar thing. But let's face it, the guitar's not cheap, okay? As a hobby, the guitar's not cheap. It's just not. It's an expensive hobby. And actually, it's one of the least expensive musical hobbies there are. If you've ever played an oboe or any sort of real stringed instrument like a violin, for example, you would know that when you complain about your $500 guitar, you have nothing to complain about. So, what this really is, and I'm going to just tell you, when I say cheap guitars drive me nuts, they don't. Not at all. I'm glad that inexpensive instruments and entry-level instruments exist. Full stop. No, I don't care what brand. I don't care where they come from. I don't care who makes them. Not at all. The thing that bothers me is cheap guitar culture. That's the thing that is annoying. Okay? I was really thinking about this because I'm like, actually, I have no problem with inexpensive guitars, and you shouldn't either. I think we should all just be like, you know what? Whoever plays guitar is good. We just want people to play. Cheap guitar culture is where the problem lies. Okay? Oh, and for those of you that grumble about how the sound is in the car, you can just watch a different video. I don't care. Not in the mood for it today. So, here's the thing. Cheap people are annoying, and they do not contribute in the same way to the culture. So what do I mean by that? Okay, people say, well, no, but I'm being frugal. Okay, frugality is spending money with intention to make sure that you have the most value in your life over the long term. Okay? That's what frugality is. A frugal person is looking at the long-term value of things in their life to make sure that over the longest term, they're getting the most value out of it. That's not cheap. I am frugal when it comes to a lot of things, right? I want to make, and typically, this means that a person spends more money up front to get more value for longer, planning longer term over their life. A frugal person does that. A frugal person is not looking for the cheapest thing, okay? Cheap people prioritize price, the lowest price, over basically anything else. They do this often at the expense of quality of life, okay? So meaning that they buy the cheapest trash bag knowing that it kind of sucks, but it was the cheapest. They wear tighty-whities. They drive those little cars that look like wind can blow them over. Okay? And I'm not talking about people of low income. Okay? Those folks are making decisions based on where they are in life. You know, my son and daughter-in-law, they live in a tiny little house in the middle of nowhere, and they're pinched pennies because they're newlyweds. They got a baby. You know what I mean? Like they're making choices, but they're being frugal because they want to plan for the rest of their life. And as a result of that, they got to pinch some pennies. Like that's pretty neat, though. It's neat to watch. And I totally support them when they make decisions, and I help them out because of that. I think it's very, very cool. And so there's a lot of folks in an income situation where they need to make decisions based on their income or lack thereof. That's not who we're talking about here, okay? We're not talking about people who can't financially swing a particular purchase. We're talking about people who intentionally avoid spending money for the sake of avoiding spending money. This typically comes, stoplight sip, from, and I've done a lot of research. In fact, over the last couple of days, I've done a bunch of research on this because I wanted to talk about this. But I do a lot of research about this anyway, because when you're marketing a premium product, as we do, you like to understand how people work. You like to understand sales. You like to understand these things, right? You like just, and what it really comes down to is human psychology. So cheap people are a result, oftentimes, of, you've probably heard the term scarcity mindset. And what that means is they grew up maybe in a situation where they didn't have a whole lot. And so now they're just worried if they're ever going to have a whole lot. But there's two ways to deal with that. There's two ways to deal with that. A person can make a decision to work themselves out of that situation, or they can be cheap. There's, those are kind of the two main choices. I grew up in a trailer park with nothing, and I've had to start over a couple of times, businesses from nothing, almost losing everything, because that's what entrepreneurs do. And so you understand the scarcity mindset, but you also understand that that's not where you want to stay for the rest of your life until you make decisions based on that, and you move ahead. Or you never get out of that vicious cycle, and you have that mentality for the rest of your life. It's what happens. As a result of the scarcity mindset, you never want to spend money on anything because you're worried that you're never going to have enough of anything. Okay. The other result, the resulting psychological thing that happens is low self-esteem. Okay. Because of that. Because now all of a sudden you're comparing yourself to other people. And tell me if this is not familiar, but you're comparing yourself to other people because your guitar isn't as good as theirs. And as a result, a couple of things happen. One is you are a just as good as guy. You're telling yourself that your cheap guitar, which is not cheap, but you are cheap. So you are cheap, and so you are telling yourself that your guitar is as good as somebody else's. That is when you say that I hate to tell you, but that is a result of low self-esteem. If you worked on that personality trait and that psychological dysfunction, it would help you more than honestly buying a better guitar or telling somebody else that their guitar. And then the next thing is you attack someone or others for having. You talk other people down to try to get them down to your level. So your guitar is not as good. You wasted your money on your guitar. You're buying your guitar as a status symbol. I'm not saying people don't do that. We'll get to that in a minute. You're buying your guitar as a status symbol. The name doesn't mean anything. You're now talking the other person that has something more expensive than you down to your level because of your lack of self-esteem. That's what you're doing, okay? It's not constructive to the community. It really isn't. The just as good as guy is trying to tell himself more than anybody else that his guitar is as good as something that costs more than what he has because of this self-esteem issue. The sun is in the perfectly wrong spot for this. That's a problem. That is a problem. That is not an excuse. That is an issue that should be addressed about yourself. Okay, I'm just going to be very brutal with you that you should address that about yourself. Now, let's talk about the people who have low self-esteem, who buy expensive stuff to show off. Because we know that happens. Okay? We know that happens. But if you look into this from a human psychology, because I did a bunch of research on this, you look into this from a human psychology standpoint and a statistical standpoint, what you'll find out is there's a lot of studies that have been done on this, is that the delta, here's what happens. People with low self-esteem assume that 90% of people buy stuff because of status, etc., etc., etc. And meanwhile, the people that have the nice thing could care less. A, that they have the nice thing, so they didn't buy it for that reason. And B, they don't know that you think that about them. Okay? Because if you do, what is that whole 10 things of successful people, you'll find out that a successful person who put themselves in a position to afford the nice thing, they've not given any thought. I don't want to say they don't care, but they've not given any thought to what you think of them and your nice thing. They've not given that mental battle that you're having with that person that bought that nice thing to show off. That person can't play very good even though he bought that nice thing. That mental thing, that's going on in your head, and it's not going on in anybody else's. It's going on in the heads of people like you, but it's not going on in the person who has the guitar, the Les Paul or the custom shop Fender or whatever. He's not thinking about that. Honestly, he's like, man, I got to work a lot today, but I can't wait to play my awesome guitar when I get home. That's what he's thinking about, right? Now, the reason this is so damaging to the community is this. The people want to say that people with nice guitars are snobs, right? They want to say that. They constantly, guitar snobs, they call me that, for example. And I'm not defending myself. I don't care. And I will say in these words, I do not care. I do not care what you think of me. I'll tell you personally how I feel about nice guitars after this. We'll put that in a separate section if you're interested, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But people, so I don't care, honestly. I have it does not affect me whatsoever. But here's what happens, okay? The person with the expensive guitar, he's been on a journey. There's a few different compartments here. Remember that scarcity mindset we talked about? So we have a person who's successful as a result of their scarcity mindset, okay? And then they realize, I want to play guitar. So what do? They're not good at it. They've never played guitar before, or maybe they have, and they know 3 chords, and they go out and they spend $4,000 on a PRS. And it hangs on their wall most of the time. But it reminds them of a song when they were little. It reminds them of their dad. It reminds them of whatever. And honestly, maybe they don't play guitar that much, but they see it on the wall, and it inspires them to be successful in other ways in their life, with their relationship with their family, with their business, with whatever. It's inspiring to them somehow, but it has nothing to do with the music, right? It might have something to do with just it's a piece that they earned and they worked for, and now they feel that like. It has nothing to do with the music. It's totally fine. I think that's great. I think that people that find a way to be motivated to do things and to not complain and I think that's great. I really like that. I think it's awesome. You have the other people. So he sucks at guitar, but he has a nice one. But it's a good thing. Then you have the other people who have worked through the entire journey over years, and now have a nice guitar. That's probably where I fall in. You had a bunch of cheap guitars. I don't even want to say cheap guitars. You just started out with entry-level instruments, and over time you worked up to them, right? So now you go to, as a cheap person, okay, you go to an open mic night with your Harley Benton, and you see somebody there with a custom shop Gibson, and they play Freebird, and you're like, that guy doesn't blah, 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 all that negative energy, right? And the person who has the guitar playing Freebird, he's got like this used to happen to me. I got a buddy who's actually not very good. You know, would always show up with a really super cool guitar, and I'm like, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. But anyway, so he shows up and he plays this super cool guitar. He plays Freebird on it, and you're like, this dude sucks. The thing is that you are thinking about this man or woman who has this expensive thing and how it's stupid and how all this negative energy that you're investing, right? Because you think that expensive guitars are a waste of money because you're a cheap person. The other person who has the nice guitar has already had the inexpensive guitars. He's worked through that stuff, and now he's got a nice one. So he likes really nice guitars, but he also has experienced, and probably still likes, and probably has a place for an inexpensive guitar in his collection. So he's included, I hate the word inclusive, but he has included all of the above, and is therefore, and is called a snob, even though he will come and talk to you about his Harley Benton because he probably has one or something like it because he's acquired it along the journey. Yet, you, as a cheap person, look down on him for having an expensive guitar and only like your cheap guitar. Who's the snob now? I don't understand that. So what you've done is you've completely shut off.
File protected.
I hit a bump and it thought I hit something. You completely shut off an entire section of fun that you could be having in this hobby because you think that only cheap guitars, etc., 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 because you are cheap. And you have cut off this entire section. In reality, the person with the very nice guitar would totally include you in any conversation that he has. Now, we know that there are some people who are not. We know that there are, but those are the outliers. If you look statistically at the psychology behind all this, you'll find out that those are the outliers. Most people are nicer than you think. There are the jerks who think that every Epiphone is not worth the ground they walk on, okay? And we don't need those people. Those people are stupid, right? Those are not cool people. But the other people that are not cool are the people who bang the cheap guitar drum because of their low self-esteem. And again, this is not because the guitar is cheap, because it's not. It's an expensive instrument. It's because they're cheap. They bang that drum. They bang the cheap drum at the exclusion of people who have nice things because of their own self-esteem. And it's a stupid thing. Don't do it. Don't be that guy. Just don't be that guy. And this is, I'm almost to my doctor's appointment. So here's the end of it. And this, not the end of it. This is how I feel about expensive guitars. Because people are, well, you have a $4,000 guitar. Why did you mention that you have a $4,000 guitar in a video? Well, because I'm trying to make comparisons with stuff like, you know, if you have this $400 guitar and you have this $4,000 guitar, we're gonna do a Gibson versus Epiphone video tomorrow. People aren't gonna like it, but it's gonna be good. So yeah, you have to have the dollars in there because you have to understand, you know, the value. And I don't care what people value. It doesn't bother me. Like, you know, you can not value a nitrocellulose finish. No problem. I'm gonna just put out what the difference between the two guitars are. You can decide which one you want to buy and how much it's worth to you. That's totally fine. You can do that, which is good. You should do that, right? You should do that. So that's important. That's part of being frugal and planning. It's important. So you should do that. The way I feel about expensive guitars is I care a lot about history and I care a lot about legacy of brand and products and stuff. I have a lot of everything that I own, actually, hobby related, like interest related, has a lot to do with with history, right? So like even the watch I'm wearing it's an homage to a history piece. I like that stuff. I find that interesting. So when I buy a guitar, I want the real thing because I just want that piece of history. So I want my D28, I want my Les Paul, I want a D18. You know, I want that stuff because I want that piece of history for me. And it is, to be honest with you, it has nothing to do with showing off. It has nothing to do with anybody else, actually. Now, we use them on the channel because I have a YouTube channel. But what you'll find is the most expensive guitars that I own are not on the YouTube channel at all. My D28, my D18, my McPherson, my acoustics actually, are the most expensive guitars that I own, and they're never on the channel. My custom shop Gibson is sometimes, but typically it's not. So I don't care about showing off, but what I do care about is, I'll tell you what I do care about, is I am very willing to share anything that I have. You can't borrow it, because I don't lend out stuff. But I'm willing to share. You come over to my house, I am an extremely generous person. So you come over to my house, if you're a little kid, I'm going to let you hold my custom shop Gibson. Or my carbon fiber acoustic, or my whatever, I want you to experience this stuff from the concept of, or from the idea of being almost like a museum, but interactively, right? I don't own the stuff for the status of it. I own the stuff because I want to share it with the world. And if people have, you know, because I like it, but then if you see it, it's because I want to share it with you. It's not because I'm showing off. It's because I want to share it with you. There's a difference there. What you'll find about me, and this is getting really off topic, but what you'll find out about me as a person, if you ever actually know me in person, is that I do not compete with other people. I'm not a competitive person. Ever since I was a kid, and this is really getting personal, but hey, I'll share it. I don't care. Ever since I was a kid, I'm at the eye doctor right now. I have a lazy eye. You probably have seen it in some videos. I was born with it. I've had a couple of surgeries because of it. As a result, there's only a couple things I'm really good at. Shooting. That's why I do a lot of recreational shooting, because I'm really good at it, because I have one really good eye. But I suck at basketball. I suck at tennis. I suck at anything with like this near field depth perception stuff. So I could never compete on any kind of team stuff. I sucked at all of it. So I am an extremely self-competitive person. It's one of the reasons why I have been relatively successful as an entrepreneur, because I can get up in the morning and make myself go, because I want to be better than I was yesterday. I want to make a better video. I want to make a better product. I want to sell more stuff. I want to do more stuff. I want to accomplish more stuff. And so my competition is with myself. I never compete with anybody else, because I view that as futile. I don't do that. So even in my guitar collection, nobody, I don't invite friends over to my house to show them stuff. I have friends that do that. They'll buy a guitar and get all their buddies and they'll check it out. I don't do that. I don't compete with other people. Not with the business, not with anything. It's just competition with other people is stupid. To me personally, I'm not actually very interested. I live in Georgia. I can't stand college football. It's just not me, man. I'm just not into it. So, now I will watch hockey. I'm a big hockey guy. And I love Formula One. It's one of the reasons why I like racing so much, is because there's so much engineering in it. There's so much science in it. And it is not, there's a lot about the driver, yes, but there's a lot of technology too. So I really, really enjoy that. Anything that has to do with making a person better than they were the day before, like your lap time, your whatever, your personal performance, is what makes you competitive. I think that's very, very cool. So that's why. So if you ever see anybody say, this guy brags about everything, I'm like, okay, that's really funny. And as a result, the people that talk about ego and stuff too, it's really funny because I'm just like, yeah, I don't really care about that though. Like, I don't know. I don't need to be better than you. I don't want to be. Actually, I don't want to be better than you. I want to be better than me. That is a very big focus of mine on a daily basis. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better dad. I want to run a better business. I want to be a better customer service person. I want to, all those things. And as a result, the success comes. That's how I feel about success. That's how I feel about making a living. That's how I feel about having a nice guitar. That's how I feel. All that stuff just comes as a result of this internal thing that I do every day, and that is get up in the morning. I put my pants on the same way, but I'm very intentional about everything. The pocket knife I choose today, the watch I choose today, the hat I choose, like everything is very intentional, because I want to make sure that it all contributes to a better day, including making these videos. So there you go. I know there's a big rant, but I gotta go see how blind I am. You guys have a good one.